Hey there, welcome back. My name is Ryan. In this video, we're going to review the board game The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. You might be thinking, how much of a game can fit into this little tiny box here? Well, the answer is actually quite a bit. Now, if you don't know how The Crew works, we're going to start the video out with just a short overview of the rules, so it kind of makes more sense to you. If you already know how it works, feel free to use the chapters below and skip ahead to the review. But really, if you don't know how it works, you should really watch the overview because it'll really help you make more sense of things. Okay, so we have the game set up right now for a 3-player game. These are the 3 players' different hands. There are 4 different colors of suits, and also we're assuming that every player is holding their hand and keeping it a secret from everyone else. In fact, you are not allowed to tell other players what you have. You can't say, oh, I had the yellow 7. That would actually completely ruin the game. Now, this video is not a complete overview of every single rule, which would actually be almost impossible because this game comes with 50 different missions. So what I'm going to do here is give you kind of the basis of how most of the missions kind of go. Now we're going to get to these cards here in the middle in just a second. Let's look at the player's hands right now. In a trick-taking game, if a player plays a color, like for example, yellow, all the other players must play yellow if they can. So in this example, let's say this player played a yellow 9. This player is forced to play yellow. They know they can't win. They have a 6 and a 3. And this player is forced to play yellow. Okay, great. This player wins a trick. Just like traditional trick-taking games, we're going to keep this over here. Now they're going to play another yellow just for fun. Let's say they play this yellow here. This player plays a yellow, and this player plays a yellow. Now again, if you're not familiar with trick-taking games, the next part might seem a little weird. You have to follow color unless you don't have that color. Let's say this player now plays a yellow 7. This player can play any color they want of any number. They don't have yellow, so they're free to do whatever they want. They can play anything. Same actually with this player over here. They don't have a yellow, so they can play anything they want. In fact, in this game, all the cards are dealt 1 through 9. So this player could have known that these players were both out of yellows by knowing that they had 5 in their hand and there are only 4 left over in the game. Now, so far, this looks like a normal trick-taking game, but these cards in the middle is what makes it special. The players must win these cards in the middle. Now, these 3 cards are all somewhere out in their hand because, again, every single card is dealt out. The players, in turn order, pick a card from the center and put it in front of themselves. That is the card they must win. So this player is going to evaluate and say they have a pretty good chance of actually winning any of these 3 numbers because they have a pretty strong hand. Let's say they take the yellow 6, because the odds of them winning the yellow 6 are basically 100%. They can play yellow 9, they can play yellow 8, they can play yellow 7. The other players are all on a team trying to give them this yellow 6. He wouldn't know it, but he would know that one of these 2 players had a yellow 6. This player, once he led with the yellow 9, would definitely put the yellow 6 on there and allow him to win the trick. Now this is where it could get interesting. This player's up next. He has to select one of these 2 cards to draft. It's a card that he has to win this round. They're pretty 50-50. This is a yellow 8. He has a yellow 8. This is the pink 7. He has a pink 8. So let's say he goes with this pink 8 right here. Of course, not knowing what his teammate has over here. This is where it could get challenging. This player now is forced to take this last card, which is a pink 7. In his hand, he has a pink 5, 4, and 2. So if, let's say, this player plays the pink 7, this player must follow suit and goes under at the pink 3. This player over here has to follow suit. So let's say they can't win, the 7's higher. They play this 2. This is the player that played the 7. They win this trick. Now the players have lost a round because this player must have been the one to win the pink 7. Now you can start to see what makes this game so brilliant. You can't just play straight up and take cards. This player has a pretty easy shot this one here. Probably the first move of this round would have been to play the pink 9. Actually, this would have been a bad move. Probably the first move would have been to play the yellow 9 here. He would have dumped the yellow 6 on, and they would have started off this way. Players would have accomplished this one first. But then it starts getting interesting. This player cannot know what these other players have. He can't know that if he plays a green 3, this player has the green 8, and this player has a lower number to go under the 8 and let them win. So players take a few rounds playing out cards, trying to get a feel for what the other players in the table have. Now honestly, once you get used to it, winning 3 tricks is not that difficult. As the missions progress, you start winning 4, 5 tricks, or what really makes the game interesting as you go along, you get more and more unique challenges that actually change the basic mechanism of the game. Okay, so let's start out here with some things The Crew does really well. First of all, as you just saw, it takes this classic idea of trick taking that's been around for so long. You play a card, high card that suit wins, everyone has to follow suit. So if you played hearts, you have to play hearts. Or in The Crew, if you play blue, everyone has to play blue. It makes a completely new game out of it. It completely changes the way you've always thought about trick taking. And there are 50 different missions. Now, some missions are basically reiterations of the same mission, just at a hard difficulty level, but some of them completely change the game. And on top of that, most of these missions take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. So you can play around, play another one if you want, and play another one. They're just able to get this really quick boom, 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 one mission after another feel. The amount of strategy and creativity they were able to get in the Crew out of just a trick-taking game but turn into a cooperative game is amazing. Before I purchased the Crew, I actually watched a few videos on trying to understand why people like it so much. I feel like I didn't have a very clear picture. It's hard to explain until you experience it. But let me try to give you a clear example. Let's say the player on my right is trying to win the red 7, and I can see they're trying to win the red 7 because that's in front of them. I know they're trying to get it. So I play a red 2, thinking if I play a red 2, there's only 3 of us. There's a pretty good chance this person can play something lower than a red 7, and they play red 7. So my player to my left plays a red 5. I'm like, cool, red 2, red 5, and this player plays a green 9. Well, that means a lot of things. First of all, they didn't play a red, meaning they don't have any reds in their hand. So I go, oh, well, I thought he had that card. Well, how is he going to get the red 7 if he doesn't have any red 7s in his hand? That's the first level strategy. Take it one step further, I realize since I don't have the red 7 and they don't have any reds, this player on my left, they must have the red 7. So I can now start forming my strategy. Is there any way I can play a card that this person can put the red 7 on to let this player, so maybe for example I see the player on my left doesn't have any blues left, so I play a low blue. They can now dump the red 7 on the blue because they don't have any blues, they don't have anything that suit, and this player can now take the blue set with a blue 5, 6, 7, and they can win the red 7. You can get it that way. But then you take it one step further and you ask yourself, why did he dump a green 9? Green 9s are powerful cards, but for some reason, if this player knows what they're doing, they don't want the green 9. The green 9's a bad card. They're trying to get rid of their greens. So this game has so much that can just be gleaned off of just, trick taking, it's cooperative. Why is that clever? Because of that. Because it's that simple interaction of I played a red 5, or 2, they played a red 5, green 9. All of a sudden, all the gears start turning. What could all this mean? So like I said, it sounds kind of confusing. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a clearer picture, but it does sound kind of confusing. But once you play a few rounds of it, it's pretty intuitive. People start figuring out the strategy on their own pretty quickly. It's also really cool because not every player actually has access to the same amount of information. So in the example I just gave, I know that he needs the red 7 because I know I don't have the red 7 and I know he doesn't have any reds. So the red 7 must be with that player. But the player on my right who needs the red 7 doesn't necessarily know that I know that he has the red 7. So not everyone is kind of doing the same thing. I've had so many rounds of the Crew end with playing a card, and I know I figured out the puzzle because I can see what's in my hand. Then the player to my left goes, no, you can't play that card. If you play that card, I have to play this card. And they play a card, and I'm like, right. They have that card, and it works. And they're like, well, how'd you know that? So we start backtracking, saying, well, I knew because of what was in my hand. Again, it seems confusing once you're in the round because the game mission 1 starts off very simple. It prepares you for this. So you go through the first few training missions. It's actually funny. There's a story as well, and the story actually has you training to do your deep space mission, which doesn't really affect the mechanics. It's just kind of a fun story to read along with the game. But it has you training, but you really are training. If you haven't played a trick-taking game, you start realizing, oh, here's all the things that all the cards could actually mean when you play them. So yeah, the game does so many things well. One other thing is just the more you play with one group, the more you really start to understand each other. So you can have a round where you have to win a certain set of cards, and those are in front of me, and I lead with a yellow 7, and everyone on the table is like, I see why you did that. And if you weren't in that group, people who are watching would be like, wait, what happened? It gets very, very read each other's minds with every single card play. All right, so now into some negatives. These are not necessarily things I don't like about the game, but just things I kind of view as flaws. Components are really bad. For a game that you have to do a lot of card shuffling, they don't shuffle good. They're not really shuffling cards, if you know what I mean. You have playing cards, classic playing cards are meant to get shuffled up and you kind of rough them up because you shuffle them. These don't really hold up that well. So components are kind of poor. There's a few pieces that come with the game that do different things. They're not great. The cards are kind of easy to tear. The art doesn't look great. So that's the only flaw I have with this game. The only big negative is just components are pretty weak. Okay, so now some things I like about the game. There's so much variety. There are 50 missions, and like I said, some of them are kind of rehashing. But one of them, for example, the first time you go through the game, you're just reading the stories, right? And one of the stories says one of you is sick, and that player cannot win any tricks this round. And you go, oh, so not only do I have to win a particular card or whatever, but in this round, if you're picked, you have to play your hand. Everyone else is playing your hand to try to keep you from winning a single trick. I've had groups have gotten to that round and thought it was so fun. We just played it over and over and over again because it's such a unique challenge to you're not trying to win particular cards. Everyone's trying to work together, and the person who's sick, everyone's working together trying to keep one player from winning any suits, but you're doing it cooperatively. So if you're the person that's sick, I'm trying to figure out ways to get rid of your high card, get not take anything. So much variety in this game. Now, maybe my favorite preference thing about the game is that it uses that trick taking mechanism. So it really reverses this whole who we think of as good board gamers. And if a card gamer is trying to learn a board game, typically people who have played older card games, maybe an older generation, you try to teach them a modern board game, they're like, oh, there's a lot going on here, it's stressful. It completely flips that. The whole crowd that plays board games they don't have a lot of experience with trick taking games. So I feel like I'm pretty good at this game. I played the crew quite a bit. I felt pretty competent. I taught a few people. I probably had 10 rounds of it played. Again, the rounds are really short, but a few different sessions playing it. Felt pretty good about it. Then I played with a few people who had played trick taking games their whole life. And it was just a mind-blowing experience. I got to the end of one round, and the person said, like, oh, you should have played the red 3. And I said, no. I couldn't play the red 3 because this, and this. And they were like, no, you should have known when I did this. I did this because of this. Remember, I took that, and I signaled you with this, and I was like, whoa. It was all there, and it really upped my game because I was like, people who play these classic trick-taking games where the point is to win all the cards for yourself, you're always paying attention to what everyone plays because you want to notice when they don't have the ability to beat you in a certain area. So that's when you can really take advantage of them. Again, this does that, but in a cooperative way. You can realize, okay, I did this. Look what I did here. I've noticed this game has this great effect where people who are typically the ones who are I'm good at board games are not necessarily great at this game. They probably like it. They don't necessarily have this, I've done this for my entire life. People who play classic card games are so good at this game. So because of that, really, I've had more success teaching the crew to non-board gamers than any other game. I have a few games that are pretty successful with new board gamers, but this is consistent. I've yet to have a bad experience with the crew. Board gamers think it's interesting. Non-board gamers think it's fairly inviting. So I'll get the recommendations here in just a second. Before I do, something I don't like about the game. The player count bothers me just a little bit. So it's 3 to 5 players, but 5 players requires an adjustment to play it. So if 5 players, they kind of say, hey, we know it's difficult. In the rule book, here's a way you can make it a little easier if you want to. I have played at 5 players, and it's really hard. So it's a little disappointing that the game works really well at 3 and 4 players. At 4 players, every person gets 10 turns, which is kind of enough to finish most of the missions. When you get to 5 players, you start only getting 8 turns. There's a lot of turns you don't have a choice about what you want to do because if you only have 1 green, you have to follow the suit when green's play. So 5 isn't the best. Also, there's a 2-player variant. Now, I'm actually happy about this because the box itself, thankfully, Cosmos, good job, Cosmos Publishing Company, they didn't say it plays 2 to 5. They did say 3 to 5. There is a 2-player variant. The 2-player variant is fun. It is a pretty different game, though. So one kind of thing that's a little annoying about it only plays really well 3 and 4 players to get the crew experience. So yeah, recommendations. This is a great game. As I already mentioned, the length of the mission is really inviting. You can sit down and play this for 15 minutes, maybe knock out 2 or 3 missions, or you can play for a couple hours. You can play the storyline one mission to the next if you really want to have a group that goes through the whole storyline, or you can kind of get to a mission that you really like and just kind of camp on and say, hey guys, I kind of like taking 3 cards each. Can we just keep doing the 3 cards each one because we're pretty good at that level? Or let's do this one really unique, fun one. Let's just do that. And you can just kind of take an evening. It's almost like a game of its own, but it has this continual story. So if you wanted to kind of march through and say, once we win one, let's go on to the next, you can do that as well. So it's a great game to have as a welcoming game. If you don't feel like you played a lot of complicated board games, this will not be too complicated. It's fairly simple. You can jump into it pretty quickly. If you are a board gamer and you want to have a welcoming game for people who maybe are like new around board games, it is just a great game for that. But if you're a board gamer Every time I teach a hardcore board gamer this game, there's always this moment where you first, again, it's a small box. You take out the components, you hand it to everyone kind of looks at their cards, you kind of tell them the strategy, and people who haven't played a trick-taking game, for the most part, just start thinking, okay, this isn't going to be a great experience. I just feel like that first vibe is just like, okay, so we're playing cards. It's basically I have a deck of cards. And then everyone I play this game with, like there's just some light bulb goes off in the first few rounds where they go, oh, it's like a social deduction game where you're on a team. There's so much thinking, so much trying to figure out what every single little thing means. So I always kind of see with board gamers that light bulb moment where it's like it hits them and they go like, oh, so I should do this. Because typically, if the people haven't played trick-taking games, you have to kind of guide them along the first few turns. Say, yeah, you probably should do this. Now, you're not really supposed to communicate that much, but you kind of give them a little guidance. And there's always that moment where they just think like, okay. Then pretty soon they're like, let's try to beat the next mission. Let's try to get the next mission. Especially board gamers kind of like that. March through the mission. Just say, let's go for number 11. Let's go for number 12. Can we do number 13? It's exciting to kind of push through the game. All right, a couple more things before we wrap up here. It's cheap and it's available, so it's a very easy game to find, very easy game to purchase. Also, I'm talking specifically about The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. There's also a new one called The Crew Mission Deep Sea. That game is fine as well. I'm talking more about specifically Quest for Planet 9. I feel like it's a little more welcoming to new players, but the games are so similar. If you want to go with the other one, it's going to be a pretty similar experience what I just now explained. Alright, so that's my review on The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. One of my favorite games. I think probably pretty easily for me the best trick-taking game I've ever played. If you like trick-taking games, I'd say give it a shot. You can really like it. If you have never played a trick-taking game, it might kind of blow your mind how much you can really get out of this game once you get into it. If you like the video, of course, hit subscribe down below, see all the reviews and playthroughs when they come out, and I'll see you all next time.